Today's episode is with the woman behind great accelerator programs, having managed Interlac and working on Techstars and Google. She's now the CEO of Bolt Consultancy. It's a bespoke accelerator program bringing startups, hackathons, workshops, and her wealth of knowledge to navigate through the startup labyrinth. And she does it with finesse, with elegance, and with humility. Aya, welcome to Failures and Beyond.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Your story is so interesting because throughout your journey, from what I've seen, you've always been around startups. You've been around that ecosystem. You've been, integral as the incubator manager with Interlac. You've been on the Techstars. All of these different elements have always kept you within the startup scene. And now with Bolt, I'm interested to know, what's your why? What inspired you to start it? And what's the problem that it's helping solve?
That's a great question. And just yesterday, before preparing to come on to the podcast, I told my husband that one of the biggest reasons why I started my own company eventually was I really want to give more women in the world the opportunity to also start their own companies. My story didn't start so positive, to be honest with you. When I was about 15 or 16 years old, my aunts, one of my aunts got breast cancer. And at the same time, she lost her husband. Okay. And that That's all hard, happened within about a month. And a big part of what Sana really taught me is, you know, she had been out of the workforce for almost a decade. And it was really hard for her to want to say, I want to live. I have a reason to live. And I need to get back into it to support my kids. And today she's running a beautiful orphanage, supporting also young kids who don't have parents in Lebanon to be able to get an education. And every year, my mother reminds me to also donate money to the orphanage. Sana's story really inspired me to want to start a business because I really believe that if I'm at least the one leading the ship, I can also manage the direction of where we're going. And a big directional focus for me would be to empower more women in the world to remember that it's not always sunshine and we have to prepare for rain. Yeah. And that's our job, really, just not just on a, let's say, on a female level, also at a male level, is making sure that they're taking care of their future. Yeah. So a big part of why I wanted to really start Bolt was because of her. And
that's beautiful.
I hope one day we can sit together and share her story to the public. Wow. Because her resilience and her courage are really things that I consider to be commendable. And definitely something that inspired me.
Beautiful. Okay, well, I think a lot of people take inspiration from different sources. Mm. Yours is something so close to your heart that it's there for you to look at. And I hope you're proud of the journey you've taken and how you've navigated through that with that essence of you want to give back. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so beautiful. You can do that, not just with, taking inspiration from someone's story of resilience, but how you're showing other people your resilience as a motivator. So that's beautiful because it's inspirational in itself. Wonderful. Definitely. Wow. Okay. That was not an answer I was expecting. Okay? I hope I'm not going to start getting emotional in this because I haven't been known to make people cry for my questions, but not me. So let's see where we go. What has been, in your opinion, your most challenging part of your entrepreneurial journey so far?
I think one of the biggest challenges of starting a business is your business model, right? So if you choose to work B2C, B2B, or B2G, that I would say goes in level of courage. And I'll explain really at starting at B2C level. If you're starting a B2C company, your biggest concern is how do you get money from consumers, right? The more empathy you have, the more you understand your target audience, the better that you can target them and support them with your solution, whether product or service. When you move up to the B2B level, there's a much higher level of networking that's required. There's a lot more effort in understanding what are the mandates, KPIs with these big businesses. Right. And then finally, at a government level, which a lot of people consider me to be crazy for, is, on B2G, you really have to have liquidity. Yep. And if you don't have liquidity, you're in a really difficult position with the government. And I'll tell you why my business became very difficult for me is liquidity was at some point a really hard, let's say, point in my business. And that was at the time when I decided that I wanted to buy out my investors and I was supporting 2 projects at the same time and financing those projects. Because oftentimes when you're working B2G, you're financing your project before you get paid. Could be 3 to 6 months before they even, consider the transfer to be done. And I remember getting phone calls from suppliers saying, hey, I know we finished this event and you promised us payment right after the project. And I actually was around 150,000 dirhams short. And
Wow, okay.
I really was, I was, let's say, swimming. And I had not paid myself a salary at that point for about 5 months. And I was like, damn. I'm like, should I continue? Should
That
I
big
stop?
question, yeah.
Should I call my father? Should I get a loan? I went through all the big questions that people would have. And I was very thankful that actually I had a very good connection within the government that I applied a little bit of pressure on to say, hey, listen, I understand that there is a lot of bureaucracy involved. I'm like, but I did respect, let's say, all the project delivery timelines on my end. And all I'm requesting is for you to hold it on yours. And 24 hours later, I had the money transferred.
Wow. Okay.
And I just, I was overjoyed, jumping up and down in the office, and girls were laughing. But I was like, you know what? I really don't want to ever be in that position again. And I decided that the first step was to go to speak to a lawyer. I showed him my terms and conditions. I explained to him my processes. And he said, your T's and C's are not as great as the governments or the businesses that you're pitching to. You need to amend them so that at least you're getting an upfront amount. It doesn't have to be 100% because you have the services that you're also offering. But for the suppliers that you're also carrying the debt for, you have to cover that.
Sure.
So I went back and I revised my legal agreements and I started to apply pressure on some of the government and businesses to say, if you want to work with us, these are our terms. I was over the moon when they started coming back to me with, yes, no problem, we can do this for you.
That's amazing. Totally different to what I've heard, by the way, and within B2G setups. But yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen similar instances where people are like, hey, yeah, we'll pay you later. You're like, well, but
and
the project is over.
Like, 3 years later.
You're like, coming soon. and that's really scary, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I'm not only dealing with businesses, I'm also paying out salaries.
Of course.
And, I'm never, ever going to not pay my employees on time. That's one huge rule of thumb that I run my business with. But on top of that, I would pay my employees before my suppliers. So that's even a more important thing.
You pay your employees before you pay your suppliers. Okay, that's an interesting way of doing it.
It's because at the end of the day, many suppliers will come, many clients will come, but my employees will stay.
I like that.
They will stay with me, and I want them to completely honor and respect the foundations as well of the business. And the only way to do that is to make sure that they know they come first. And I remind them that they do as well. So that was a huge learning curve for me, was how do I get out of the deep sea? I prayed, but
we've all been there. Yeah, I had many conversations on that level.
But the second thing I did is I consulted with a lawyer, and that really changed my outlook on things. So I definitely encourage anyone who's listening that's going through something similar is you might be stuck in the deep end now, but you need to swim to the shore, and you can definitely get the right support around you to get there.
That's really interesting because your perspective and your experience has been vastly different to what I've heard out there.
Yeah.
And this is even pre-COVID. So I don't think it's a pre-COVID, after COVID kind of thing. I think that the level in which you dip your toe in and you have that backup system in your case, it was on the legal side, making sure that your documents were correct. So legally you're secure. But there are instances, I think, where people have still secured every aspect within what they can do, but the client, whoever that might be, doesn't honor it. And then they're stuck in legal back and forth situation. It becomes more of a ping pong match. And they just give up. Because ultimately, I think it comes down to the point of, when do you know that, you know what's most important? I love what you said, that your employees are more of your priority than your clients. For me, I don't actually have employees. I work with freelancers. So I do project basis.
Yeah.
And that was a decision I made throughout the whole COVID experience. But I always pay my suppliers first before I pay myself.
Yeah.
And that's the same concept as what you're saying. They're always there for me. So I know that when I need something, I go to them.
Totally.
They know that they're going to get paid. When the client pays me is none of their concern. So I don't follow this concept of, oh, you'll get paid when I get paid. No. I will take the job on because I know I can pay you. When I get paid, it's between me and my client. And I only have chosen to work with clients who I know are secure. So I think that's a really interesting way that if you do have employees, make sure that they're your priority.
Yeah.
And then obviously that will return in itself the fact that you have that core foundation that you can rely on, and then you can allow your business to grow.
Totally. But I really love what you said about the clients that you work with, right? So it's also so important, right? To be able to choose the clients that you're going to work with, and you understand that there is a relationship there. It's not just that you are another supplier that's walking into their office.
Yeah.
And that's what really allows you the ability to be able to execute and deliver on these projects well enough, and also honor all the suppliers that are involved.
One of the biggest lessons I think entrepreneurs can take on board is you don't have to follow this concept of whatever comes to you, say yes and take it.
100%.
Be selective with your clients. I learned that the hard way. And I've always said, just don't say yes because it's, if I don't say yes to this, where am I going to get my money from for the next month? It's choosing your clients.
100%.
It makes such a big difference into your own, I'd say,
sanity.
Sanity, your mental health, the way that you show up, the passion that you have for your work. If you lose that, what are you doing? What are you doing this for? You have to have that level of showing up to the best of your abilities, knowing that the person that is there for you as your client and your partners and your team, you're all in the same game.
Totally.
If you're all happy, and I always said there's enough of the pie to go around.
Yeah.
So let's just, pick the right pie and then dig in and we're all good. Ultimately.
100%. And also one thing that you mentioned on the terms and conditions that come to you don't need to accept immediately.
Yeah.
But what you do need to do as an entrepreneur as well is ask. I didn't know that I could get a 30% upfront payment from one of my suppliers until I asked. I was sitting in the back end just accepting what's being given to me.
Yeah.
And it was only until the third time we were drafting a contract, I said, hey guys, can we change this? And they said, oh, actually, yes, we can. And I was like, man,
crazy, isn't it?
why didn't I do this in the beginning? So I really think it's important to, as you said, try and make sure that you have the right clients on board, but definitely add that level of curiosity, because that's what's going to help you get what you need as well.
Yeah. I mean, I always say, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
if you don't take that risk, and maybe they'll say no, but maybe they'll say yes. So why not? And you can be that person who asks the question and will get that, oh, well, maybe let's see if we can work on it. That in itself is an open door.
Totally.
So this is what the whole concept of entrepreneurship is, taking risks. Even if you think you're going to look silly, take the risk, because ultimately you get 30% in advance.
Yeah.
So we'll put for you. At the end of the day, you ask the question, you got it in the contract.
Exactly.
I love that. Perfect.
Exactly.
Ultimately, forward-thinking people having a growth mindset, it just changes the way you see failure. And it takes away that taboo, that shame that's attached to, I shouldn't really tell people that didn't work. I shouldn't tell them that, this whole project is completely a disaster. I put all my money in this and it just didn't work. There is a level of shame that I think if we can just put that to one side and get to the core of what was a lesson behind that failure, it really will help a lot of people.
100%.
So I'd love to know what aspect of failure has helped you to move forward, in as far as, do you see it as it's a temporary glitch? Do you see it as, the quicker I fail, the more I learn? These kind of concepts, like how do you see failure in your experience?
I totally agree with you that failure is learning. There's no doubt about it. When I left Intilak, I joined a prop tech company. I won't name any names for this podcast, but I had, let's say, bet all my marbles on that company that I was leaving Intilak for. And one of the, let's say, the saddest days of my life is when I got let go of that prop tech company. I went home and I was, sitting with my mom and crying on the couch. And she looked at me and was like, okay, Aya, I want you to close your eyes and remember the happiest time you were working.
Oh, you had some mommy therapy right there. Okay.
I had some amazing mommy therapy. And I said, intilak. And she said, I don't want you to think about it as something you regret. I want you to think about if you can do that for other people. And I
God, you're giving me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And I remember thinking, you know what? I definitely understood how the system works from a legal standpoint, from an operational standpoint, from a team standpoint, from a financial standpoint. I understood so many things. We were working with B2B and B2G at Intilak. And I had seen some incredible partners and some of the most amazing leaders at a very high level. So I kind of took a step back and said, okay, you know what? I might have made the biggest mistake of my life. And that's how I phrased it to my mom, which, was very dramatic at the time, but it was exactly how I felt. And I told her, okay, you know what? I made a mistake, but I'm going to use this to fuel my next business. I want to create more accelerator programs, hackathons, innovation workshops for other partners. I'm going to just try it out and see where it goes. And I remember thinking I could feel completely ashamed that I got let go of my company. But in every circumstance that I could, I told people I got fired. I said it on stage in front of 20 people, 50 people, 200 people. I never cared. I actually was so proud that I did something so much bigger than myself.
Yeah.
I took on a role that was so much bigger than me. It was so much bigger than COVID, right? Was not, I would say, not as big as COVID actually, and that's really the reason why we and me and another 49 people got let go from that company is the market wasn't ready, and we were really going through a downturn. So I took that learning with me and converted shame into that true opportunity. So I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful I got fired, because or else I would never have taken that as the courage to start my own business. So shame to opportunity, 100%. That's
I love that.
That's
I think
what happened.
you've basically summed up what I read somewhere, and it's so true. Rejection is only a redirection. That's ultimately what it was.
100%.
That you were let go, but you were redirected to what you actually are not only, ready and equipped for, but you actually had everything going for you. You just were directing it in the wrong fashion. And that was the only thing you needed to just let go from that aspect and start a new adventure.
Totally.
So it's amazing that you use that aspect, because a lot of people would take that opportunity and be like, well, what do I do now? Where am I going to be useful? Who's going to need me? What am I worth? And they do a lot of introspective work in the worst possible way. And you took that with a little bit of help from mum to redirect all of your energy
For sure.
into the next project. And that is such an incredible way to, just navigate through the whole experience of what is going on, where am I, what am I supposed to be doing, what do I want to do, what do I love to do. And now thankfully you found what that is.
For sure. But I will take a step back and mention something that you also said. I didn't go straight into Bolt. I definitely shopped around to see what people were offering as positions. I went back to all my old friends that I worked with, and the market wasn't there. We were really going through a tough time with COVID, and I'm very thankful for COVID. Actually, a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, it was the worst thing ever."
No, it was the best time for me too.
But yeah, no, and it really did shape the way that we acted next in our businesses, in our lives, in our, just even towards our health. It woke up so many, let's say, sleeping dragons for people, and I'm very thankful for that as well, because it really made me choose the best decision of my life.
That's amazing. Again, it goes to the testament of your perspective. You look at things as the glass half full, not in so many other ways. People have always seen this is a situation, the economy, what is happening in the world, anything it might be. They'll go from something small to something huge, and they'll use that as an excuse to just sit there and say, well, I can't possibly do it. COVID was one of those experiences. And I know for a lot of people, it really was devastating, and their businesses failed, they suffered. And I think for other people, they just took that as fuel to take some time to just figure out, what do I want to do really, and get on with it. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. And I know personally, I had a meltdown like for 3 weeks. I'm an events person. I'm a social person. I'm an extrovert. Put me in and I was with my family, thank God. So it was a blessing in that I had people around me. If I was on my own, God knows what would happen. Like I started doing these webinars just because I wanted to reach out and just, I miss seeing
Reconnect.
people. Like even I saw the name, I was like, oh, it's people. That's how much I had this FOMO thing going.
Yeah.
So COVID helped me to first eradicate that, thank God, but also to completely realize I love connecting to people and connecting ideas with reality. And I just started the whole events business as a marketing agency. And it just became the biggest thing I did in the last, God knows, 25 years from COVID. So I think you take that as a bad experience that you were able to reformulate and create a new path for yourself. And that's huge. That takes a lot of resilience in yourself with a lot of the curiosity to see what can be done.
Totally.
Well done. Well done to you. I love that.
Thank you.
What was that change-making failure for you that helped you just say, this is what I will never do again?
Well, this is quite personal, but for me, it was really the moment that I realized I didn't want my investors on the board.
Wow, that's a big one.
It was really big for me. And my number one employee, I can't say her name because I only have a full female team. So I'll say her. She actually, she went for a little walk with me one day. We always take these like really nice walks just to get our blood flowing and talking honestly. And I broke down and she kind of like, she held me a bit and she said like, are you okay? And I said, no. I said, I really need to take that step. And wow, I'm emotional about it again. But I realized that the business was doing well. And I was so not confident when I started that it would. So it was a really beautiful moment. And I'm almost crying from happiness and remembering that I was only lacking that confidence to start.
Gosh,
Right.
you're giving me, my whole body is going into goosebumps. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a very powerful one. Yeah.
It was very tough for me. And I
feel
love
like giving you a hug.
no, don't worry. But I felt very energized, let's say afterwards, to kind of have gone to my investors and negotiated a way out because I realized that I wasn't getting what I needed from them. And I'm such a big believer in saying, if you're not giving someone something, then they're feeling it on the receiving end. So I took a decision that day to go speak to them and say, I don't need capital. I wanted so much more than capital. I wanted to build a business that would exist for decades, that would create impact, that would scale. And that's really what I'm not getting from you guys. So when I really went and I had that conversation, it changed everything for me. It changed my outlook. I removed fear. I was able to breathe properly. And a lot of people don't realize that when you stay silent, you're almost putting yourself in prison with your ideas.
Yeah.
And just realizing that tipping point is what changed my outlook and allowed for me to be a lot more confident in my decisions. So I think recognizing that I was in prison was the biggest part for me to have created that change. That's what changed me.
Such a powerful answer to a question, which I didn't think it's going to get that really, that's very personal. Thank you for sharing that, because it's a topic that people honestly don't even want to dip their toe in because it makes them almost look like they're weak. And the fact that you not only so courageously have shared that point where you were not feeling confident, you lost your mojo, let's say. That level of authenticity and vulnerability was able to propel you to take that firm stand and say, this is not okay. That's a huge leap. Like really, it's something that I think is commendable, that you can actually take that strength within yourself and say, what I've got right now is great for a lot of people, but it's not working for me.
Yeah.
And it's huge. The fact that you had the courage to say that and take those steps.
Yeah.
I mean, well done to you.
And it's a really tough conversation as well to have, because I always say, choose the investors that you would marry. You know, really, you're talking to them and communicating with them all the time. And it was almost like going in for a divorce, like really saying, it's not working for me. It's nothing personal. It's not about you. It's really about the direction I want to go with my business. And they were amazing to have supported me right from the beginning. And I really honor and respect that, from their end. But I just felt if I keep doing this, I'm not going to be happy. And I finally felt like I was in a financial position to do it, which again, maybe I overstepped. And I mentioned earlier, it was a bit difficult for me, but taking that decision was also one of the best things for me. And maybe till today, they're not happy about it because of the direction I am going in with the business. But I felt long-term, I would have gone from happy to really sour. And that's not something that I wanted. I didn't want to be in a relationship with people that would feel that from me, because that's not who I am as well. So that was a big decision.
I think it's really interesting you touched upon the fact that choosing your investors is like choosing your partner. And I think it's really, really critical for people to see. Like I personally, when I started the Entrepreneurial app, I had 2 people, very early stage. I was all bootstrapped. It was the most basic thing I put together because I needed to reach out to potential freelancers and other entrepreneurs who could help me in my business. And I put together this app, and I don't know anything about tech or anything to do with the app world apart from using them. And we just put it out there. And I had 2 investors who came and said, look, I really want to invest in your business. And I was like, I love you. I thank you very much. But no, because I'm not built for having to answer to you. I don't even know what this is. I don't even know where this is going. And I know how I operate. I can't take your money and then do whatever it is I want to do without taking your consideration into heart. So I can't say yes to that. And I think there is a gap between where people see investors as we need their money to stay afloat or to start this even, to the point of, are you ready to give equity? Are you ready to actually allow someone else to dictate where your business is going to go? Like that in itself, do you know what that involves? Once you have all of that in your mind, then take a decision to take an investor on. But to have the strength within yourself, to have that conversation and say, it's just not working. It is literally like you chose a partner and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And it was that it's not you, it's me conversation, but just with a lot of money behind it. So I think it's really important for people to realize how critical it is in choosing your investors, even if you don't know what that's going to bring you. It's a really quite big decision to make.
100%. It's the most important decision to make. Your partner will affect everything in your life. Yeah. And, even when I got married, I realized how important communication is, right? I tell my husband everything I'm doing almost to the second. And the reason we even decided to do that is because we know how difficult it would be to also distance ourselves. And that would create bigger problems down the line. So I think also with your investors, you have to really ask yourself, are we going in the same direction? Yeah. Do they truly understand what I need? Or does he or she really understand what I need? And having that conversation right from the beginning, I know is hard because no business has ever created a BCM, which we tell all founders to create and then never use again. But it will never look like what you're actually doing, right? And having that honest conversation with them to say, hey, look, this is going to completely change at some point. Observe their reactions, understand really what they're looking for, and ask yourself, do I actually want to go in this direction, or am I only saying yes so that they'll give me their money? Yeah. So also having that truly honest conversation is super critical. So take your time in making that decision and understand that every single partner you're going to bring on is going to be involved. And you want to really understand from your heart, from your conscience, is this someone that I'd really like to bring on or not?
Yeah, it's a big decision. So it's fascinating to me that you have experienced that. And thankfully, you took that decision. It's worked out for the best for you. And it hopefully will help other people to just understand if they're ready for it. And if they've made a decision, it's just not aligned to them. I think it's all ultimately about alignment. If you're aligned to that decision, keep going. And if you feel for whatever reason, it's just not working out, have the courage to stand up and say, this is just not okay anymore. Can we change it? Or maybe I can't do this with you anymore. Whatever that conversation would look like. But like you said, communicate that. rather than just get stuck in a role that you don't want to play anymore. It's fundamental. So thank you for sharing that. I want to tap into the power of hindsight. And let's go back to when you shared the point of why you started Bolt, but I want to know, go back to that time and what would you have said to yourself to do differently?
Well, for one, I think I most probably would not have asked for any investor to come on board. I mean, I think the biggest reason why I did that is because my last startup that I launched, I didn't get any investment, and I was just working to prove traction. But I was also in the wrong industry. So I was trying to build a business that was B2C, which really wasn't for me. It was a great concept, beautiful concept, but I had to close it down with my co-founder about, say, 5 years ago now. And I was worried that I would have the same experience in this business, that I would be, soul searching for so long and it wouldn't be worth it. And maybe I was searching for that confidence boost in asking for investors to come onto my board. The irony was the business couldn't run without me. So I was GM and I was being paid to be the GM of the business. That was the agreement. But ironically, if I had just understood, let's say, that I would be able to achieve and I would be able to succeed in my business, I would never have gone for investment. Yeah. A lot of entrepreneurs second guess themselves in the same fashion.
It happens, correct. Yes.
Right? I'm sure you as well, right?
Yep, that doubt that creeps in. Of course it does.
100%. And we don't really believe in the gap in the market. When I launched my business, 11 days later, we received the Mohammed bin Rashid Innovation Fund project, which was one of the biggest in the country. And I look back at that moment thinking, I didn't even have a license when we won that project. And luckily we had two amazing partners that came on board as well with us. But I would never have accepted for investment if I knew that a deal that big was coming in.
Yeah.
And it became a flow of opportunities that were coming my way. Oh, Aya's doing her own thing. Let's get in touch. Aya, can you do this? Of course, I have no idea how to do it, but I'm going to do it. I hired incredible people who empowered me to be able to execute on bigger projects. And that's how the business kind of started. There was an opportunity. I said yes. And then we just kept going, right? And if I could go back in time, I would just say, Aya, this is your business. This is your domain. If you're starting something in here, it's because you know how to do it. Of course, I'm passionate about the work that I'm doing. And I said at Google the other day with Shanaz's team, I said, don't do what you're passionate about. Do what you're good at. And I got a lot of pushback on that statement. But one of the main reasons I said it is because, not just because Cynic said it, but also because people really have to understand what they're capable of doing with their own two hands. We often forget that.
Yeah.
So your confidence is about really understanding, like, can I do this? Can I do this? Because I have done this before, right? And that's what you're giving to someone else.
Yeah.
How can I teach if I don't know anything, right? Am I just passionate about creating things, or am I actually good at creating things? That's where your confidence is going to come from. It's about really understanding that.
I love that because it falls in line with the whole concept of Ikigai. And that is taking 4 quadrants. What are you great at doing? What do you love doing? What are you good at? What is it that you're good at doing that can make money? And what can you give back to the world or to society? If you can match all of that and you've hit upon it, and I think there was this mad craze about passion projects and have passion for what you want to do and all this. But like you said, if you're not good at it, where's passion going to get you?
100%.
As a hobby. Keep it as a hobby. Perfect.
100%.
But you cannot turn that into a viable income generator if you're not good at it. Unless you're great at coming up with ideas and then other people will implement and execute, fair enough. Then you're an ideation person. But there is a level of understand your strengths and weaknesses.
Totally.
And I think one of the best things that I remember from my business degree was doing SWOT analysis, like for case studies, drove me mental. But then I remember when I was doing a lot of this personal development courses and stuff, and I said, wait, I remember I used to do SWOT analysis for different things. Why don't I do it for myself? And I started doing my strengths and weaknesses. And I started to put in there from external environment and internally. And then I started to realize, what am I good at? Where are my weaknesses? And how can I bring in different people to help me, kind of puff out the bits where I'm not so good at? Because I don't want to wear 20 different hats. 100%. And I know we do at the beginning stages, but it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's just like at the point you're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not
100%.
an accountant. I'm not a copywriter. I'm not a legal person to read every contract. I'm not good at 40 different things.
Yeah.
I can do these things well, and I'm going to get on with those. The rest of them, I am not going to pretend. And I think saying that to yourself, you buy back that power that you somehow lose because you're doing so many things.
Yeah.
And then just focus on the things you're great at. That gives you that confidence that you might have lost. And the self-doubt wouldn't be so powerful, because it only creeps in my opinion, when we're doing things that are out of our norm, not in the way that we're not good at it because we just have to practice and you'll get better at it. It's more that it's not your forte.
Yeah.
Employ someone else to do that for you.
100%.
Give that role to somebody else.
And we're not supposed to be good at everything.
No.
And owning up to it as well is super critical. I remember at some point I was telling my investors, I said, I need to hire a full-time accountant. And they were like, why? We have somebody already that we're using. And I was like, no way. I had to put the power back in my court, right? I mean, first of all, if you have an external accountant that, let's say you're hiring, you're not 100% in control of your business. Your money movement is everything. Correct. So I actually wanted to get deeper and closer to my financials so I can understand project per project, what am I spending on? And that was what's going to affect the future of my business. Sure. So that moment when I took back my power, just like you said, I had the ability then to move forward and, let's say, excel more in what I'm good at doing. Yeah.
You put your focus on what you're good at and let that, do what it does.
Yeah.
You'll feel so much better and you won't feel depleted from the energy of, I can't do this. Oh, I have to do that. And I remember there was a concept when they said, do the biggest job that you don't like to do first and then the small things. I'm like, what are you indoctrinating people to understand? This is programming that's going wrong.
Yeah.
Because people are buying into the concept of, I have to do this even though I hate it. And this break through your discomfort and, get out. I'm like, this all works within reason. It doesn't apply to everything.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't apply it to all aspects of your roles within a company or within a business that you need to set up. There is elements that you have to kind of have that discernment to understand. Is this what I'm good at? Yes, I'm going to push forward. Rather than I have to. It's what I have to do as an entrepreneur. It's really not.
It's not.
And it's just a fallacy and a myth that we've all bought into. I'm culprit. I've done the same thing.
Yeah.
And I realize, what am I doing? I'm exhausted. I can't do 100%. This anymore. So you just have to realize, navigate your way through it.
But then I'll kind of ping pong question back to you, which is, at what point should you say, I'm not interested in doing this thing?
Okay, so from my experience, you have to see if you're just lazy, that you don't want to do it, or that it's just taking too much of your energy and your brain power where you're not able to execute your actual roles that you're great at in a much more effective way. Mm-hmm. So in that capacity, you have to measure it yourself. But I think there is an element of try and see. If you don't try, you'll never know. 100%. So I actually didn't know I'm a creative person. I always said to myself, I can't draw, I can't do this, I'm not creative. Then I started to realize, wait, when it came down to creating my own brand and let's say even the content for social media, I was like, this is not my thing. But when I was actually working with a team that we were executing on a project for a client, I was the one who was telling them what they should be doing on a creative side. Yeah. And I thought, hold on a minute, I didn't know I have that creative element within me. It's only because I let someone else do something and I was just kind of tweaking it. I started to take the pressure off that I have to execute. I have to be really good at this. And I started to realize I'm great at giving them the direction, but I don't have to execute on that element. So my creative juices flowed when I didn't put pressure on myself. So I think there's an element of try and see if it's good for you or not. And if it's not, understand that it's not meant for you. Yeah. So give that to somebody else. And that's how other people can grow their business too. There are people out there who are doing content creation. If it's not my gig, it's money in their pocket. So this is how we're supposed to, keep the economy going. If I'm going to do everything, maybe it might help me in the first few months of setting up, but ultimately I'll be exhausted. Yeah. And how good am I going to be in, doing what I have to do when I can't even get out of bed?
And you're not supposed to burn out. No. You're not supposed to burn out. And I love what you're saying because it's almost like this temperature control, right? At what point are you fuming over doing things?
Correct.
And accepting that it's okay. I'm not supposed to be doing everything and I'm not supposed to be great at everything is 100% your job. Is really to get that pulse. And you get better with it over time, for sure. In the beginning, you're like, I can handle this.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, no, I'm not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you know when to say no.
Yes.
I think it's a personal experience that you have to go through. And then you get it, you move on.
Yeah.
And we've all been there. I burnt out. I took the whole of last year off because I reached burnt out stage. And I didn't think so. I was like in this bubble of denial, if you like, thinking, no, I've got this. And I was just bringing on more clients because I thought, well, I'm just streamlining everything. I'll put this team on, that team on. But ultimately, I'm the one supervising everything.
Yeah.
So I cannot be, I don't know if you ever watched this cartoon called Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
And he has Go Gadget. I can't do that. I can't, stretch out there and then be here and be in Egypt and then be in Saudi. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I had to start to minimize my energy expenditure to the point where I'm conserving my own well-being.
Yes.
So that I can be the best I can be.
Yes.
And it's a really big learning. So thank you for sharing that. Having worked with so many startups, what would you say is the most important quality for an entrepreneur to foster?
Very good question. If I could choose one quality in specific, it would be... This is a tough one. Definitely something around curiosity. I go back to definitely the attribute that I've selected for myself as well. But almost not taking things personal is what creates great entrepreneurs.
That's a good one.
Because you're only blinded by what you don't know, right? And having the ability to go sniff out and understand what's really going on should only give you perspective. The day you lose a project to somebody else, I really encourage you to go out there and ask the client why. It is extremely important for you to understand how you're perceived as a company. How are you perceived as a team? What do people think that you should be working in, right? All of this is great feedback for you to be able to alter your positioning. It could also become a self-reflection exercise where you understand actually that maybe these are the types of projects that we should not be doing, right? Or maybe it's just not the right time for us. But having that ability to be curious is the only thing that will get you closer to becoming more successful. Not accepting defeat, not taking it personal are secondary qualities of that.
Love that. I think you're so right, because we do take it as a personal failure, if you like, if someone rejects us or we didn't do it enough, we didn't present well enough, we didn't communicate well enough. But if we take it as feedback and look at how we can get it better for next time, that will only help us to fail forward. Again, it falls
100%.
into that whole concept. So love that. How would you recommend, or what would you recommend for startups to incorporate in their services or in their company structure within the realm of tech?
Tech is quite broad, for sure.
That's why I'm not pinpointing it. I'm like, go into whichever avenue you want.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's definitely ways for you to be able to be more efficient as a team using technology. And it depends on the type of software, depends as well on the type of industry that you're in. But I think it's also important to note that there are much easier ways to get things done. But I do feel that almost everyone is now susceptible to it, part of our generation, of course. Yeah. The older generation are still stuck on the concept of Excel sheets and documentation, and I'll open a Word document to produce something, right? I was having this conversation with my adorable intern who joined us for the summer, and she was like, my dad is still stuck in his old ways. And she was explaining to me the situation, and I kind of giggled because I was like, yes, because that's what they're used to doing. Right. Why fix it if it's not broken? It's definitely the methodology and philosophy of the older generation versus us who are like, hey, there's this new blockchain AI that can produce presentations for us. Let's give it a go, right?
Exactly.
And that's sort of our appetite towards new tech. I recently joined the ChatGPT accelerator that was part of Fahed Bazari's program. And I actually was getting really interested in how we can truly use ChatGPT as a consultant that works for us. Yep. it's a really untamed power of what AI can really give us. And that's something that we're going to be exploring as companies in the next few years. I was going to say decades, but it's coming much faster than we think. And on so many other podcasts as well, Peter Diamandis included, he's talking about how AI, you know, when we launched ChatGPT, they were expecting OpenAI to come a little bit after.
Mm-hmm.
And the joke was that Sam Altman was saying, you know, this is just one of the features that we're just giving to the public as, you know, a little cookie in the mix.
Yeah.
And the irony is that we really are all biting into it. And this is what's giving them true feedback on what's coming next. So I think in the next few years, we're truly going to see the donut flip. The donut I'm referring to is that technology exists around us and we're sort of in the middle and we grab the tech that we want. But in the future, we will exist on the outside of the donut and the technology will be the one directing our focus on making the bus on time or eating the types of proteins that we need for our body, consuming the amount of vitamins that we need for our wellness, meditating at the times that we need to, right? So all these Minority Report, Black Mirror type of episodes, you know, it's coming and it's coming fast. So as companies, we need to, number one, embrace it. Not just on an operational level, but on a legal level as well. We need to get lawyers really into the mix on what we're working on. And number two is we need to keep an open mind because if technology is going to be impacting society and the way that we expect it to, then our clients will also be embedding it within their companies. So we also need to be cognizant and ready for that change to come.
I think that you've touched upon a couple of really interesting points because with Peter Diamandis, what he's been saying years back has been a wake-up call, I think, for people who were so worried about what does AI mean, what is it going to be, you know, how is it going to impact my life? And then with Sam, I attended online the session that they had with OpenAI, with Hub 71 in Abu Dhabi, and I just found it fascinating that, first of all, I love the way that he just puts information across. I love his sarcasm and his just whole vibe. It was fascinating to me. But honestly, I just realized that I think that crowd knows more about what's going on in the world of AI, but there is still people who are asking, what does this mean for me?
Yes.
How will it impact my life? And I think that's only just because we don't have enough information or we're not researching enough. We need to, in your words, we need to get more curious.
Yes.
And that's been something that I've always thought was a life learner is a concept that we should always adopt just because the minute you stop learning is the minute that you don't want to learn a new way of thinking or a new way of being or a new methodology or a new skill. Why should we stop learning? AI is just going to be there to help us. And I think if we stop being so fearful of it and act defensively, we can start to be more proactive and learn how to utilize ChatGPT. And I've used it for so many different things. And I think we can make it be our, you know, partner rather than be some element of technology that we need to be aware of in as far as I need to make sure I don't lose my job. If that job is up on the chopping board, maybe there's something else you could do with your skills that is not something that can be done with machine learning on any type of level. So I just think the more we get curious, the more it's going to help us.
100%. And like you said, the only people we should be worried about are the ones that are going to be left behind. Yeah. And we really need to create ways and paths for them to be able to keep up. That's going to be the scary part.
Agree,
of
totally
all of
agree. What's the best advice you've been given?
In college, it was that your GPA can only go down.
Okay.
So make sure you work really hard to keep it up. The second best piece of advice is not to take anything personal. Everybody is fighting their own battle. Everybody is going through their own thing. I think it's so important to be in tune with who you are and how you're feeling at all points in time. You will create great experiences for other people if you're kind to yourself, right? And being kind to yourself is also about being truly empathetic towards other people's feelings and knowing that everything that you do say is taken in one way or another. So I think that that's something that I would definitely say, don't take it personally, but also understand how you can affect other people. affect other people.
Yeah, that's very powerful. I just wanted to know if you have any daily practices that keeps you more focused on, your path, your alignment, more centered.
So I work out almost every day. And a big part of that is because it allows me to, some people say meditation should be when you're sitting down and in silence.
Then they don't understand what meditation is. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, meditation is really breathing and going through the motions. So I think one of my favorite things to do is during a bar class is just to think, was that person affected by what I had said? Or what was that new thing that I saw yesterday that I would love to get deeper into? Or I wonder if my employee is okay. Just re-asking myself for just my surroundings, my inner circle, my outer circle, how is everyone doing? And I spend that morning sort of silently praying for them in a way.
Oh, beautiful.
Because I'm just so curious about how are they going through what they're going through. And when I see them, I remind them of that meditation that I had, and that's through my daily walk sometimes with the team, that ability to kind of pick up just that human part, which is what we should always remind ourselves to do.
Love it. I can be talking to you and just sharing and learning from you for hours and hours, but I know that you've got a busy day and you've got a lot of things going on. So I'm going to wrap it up with one question.
Okay.
What's next for Aya and what's next for Bolt?
Great question. Okay. On the personal level side, I do a lot of public speaking. And I actually was telling Sana, the CEO, the other day, the reason why I do it is because I get to learn about so many new industries and so many new technologies that are out there. So I want to keep doing that. I want to do it not just in Dubai, but I also want to go outside of my comfort zone within the UAE and meet more people in more countries working on interesting things and contribute to them with through public speaking. The second one is with Bolt, something under the wraps, but we are working on two big things, one of which will be very much data driven, which I won't talk too much about, of course, until we have something to show for it. But we will be working with an AI specialist and a data scientist from Denmark that are coming on board to work with us on that. And then on the second side, we're working on a software which we want to launch internally just to be able to work with our clients better. So I think those are two big projects that we're working on that are going to keep us quite busy. And then expansion. So wherever Bolt is kind of going to go next, it looks like we'll be in Saudi Arabia quite soon. And we've already been in Jordan and across the UAE as well. So that's what's next.
So exciting things to look forward to. And I'm going to say this and take it with a pinch of salt. I hope to see you again soon, sharing more of your stories and learnings, but maybe keeping the failures down to an absolute minimum. Just, I wish you all the best with everything you've got going on. And I know whatever you do, it's going to be 100% representative of you, your energy, your positivity, your optimism, and that love that you have for staying true to you, I think will come through in anything that you end up doing. I seem like I'm rhyming whenever I'm talking about certain things, but there's no intention. It's just the pure element of you are always that person who not only gives me goosebumps, but is pure authenticity. And I say that truly because every time I've seen you either on stage presenting or sharing your story or any capacity, you're always just so calm in your way of showing up that it shows me you are who you are. And that level of strength you have within yourself, it's so apparent that trust in yourself and your capabilities, it's allowing other people to be the best that they can be. So again, well done on everything you're doing. Bravo to you. I can't wait to see all these amazing things you're going to bring out. And please don't forget us. Come back again in a couple of years once you've had your new big launches. And I'll just always want to hear more about what you're doing because I think you're amazing. There's our word, amazing.
Amazing.
And I genuinely do think that there is so much to learn from you because you've just literally started your own journey. And there is so much more that you're going to give to the world. So thank you from my side. I've loved your story. I hope everybody else has taken so much from what you've been sharing. And thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Fari. And likewise, I'm so happy for you to be launching your podcast. And you are definitely one of the most genuine people I know personally.
Thank you.
And you're always thriving and doing bigger and better things. So I'm very proud of you as well.
Oh, thank you, Aya. Well, thank you again very much for coming along.
Thank you.
And I'm sending you lots and lots of love. And now, look, I'm like, I need space to move. But thank you again for joining us. And that was Aya, everybody. Testil.ae are the fastest growing UAE domain and hosting provider. Exclusive only to FabDXB subscribers, benefit from 50% discount on their hosting services by using the promo code FabDXB. Just visit testil.ae and you can elevate your online presence.